Good afternoon, everyone. Before we begin, I want to honor Cecile Richards, a relentless champion for abortion rights, reproductive health care, and equality. Her incredible legacy will forever serve as an inspiration and guide as we carry on the fight for this basic civil right, and my heart is with her loved ones and her family. After 15 months of devastating violence and war in Israel and Palestine, a ceasefire took effect on Sunday. Over the course of these 15 months, too many lives have been lost, families separated, and communities destroyed. There is a lot of work ahead of us to get on the path to lasting peace in the region and to rebuild the lives shattered by war. Life is precious. By working together and committing ourselves towards peace, we can ensure a reality where everyone gets to live safely with dignity and security. That's what all people deserve. I also want to take a moment to address the opening actions of the new presidential administration that have been more focused on seeding division and fear than addressing the needs of this country and its people. The initial actions and executive orders have threatened to impose severe harms that can negatively impact millions of New Yorkers in every corner of our city. Instead of solutions to the challenges facing working people in our city and nation, we've seen actions that will increase prescription drug prices, pardon those who attacked our Capitol and police officers, threaten public health, undermine the diversity that has been a critical asset to our country, activate maltreatment of public servants, and so much more. We are witnessing a weakening of democracy and democratic governance that we should never take for granted, and it demands strong leadership from us all to preserve. One of the greatest anti-democratic attacks we've seen is the blatant disregard for our Constitution, with the unlawful executive order that claims to overturn the 14th Amendment's principle that all persons born in the United States are citizens. We must remember its history as one of the constitutional amendments adopted after slavery and during Reconstruction. This provided pivotal rights, including citizenship, to my formerly enslaved ancestors. It was furiously opposed then, particularly by Confederate states, which is telling context to understand this current challenge. The most perverted views of our past are indeed returning today. Historically, for our city, the 14th Amendment has granted citizenship to those who make New York City great. New York City's rich African, Asian, Caribbean, European, and Latino communities have built this very city and advanced our country. The President's executive order to overturn this citizenship clause enshrined in the 14th Amendment is not only unconstitutional, but also abhorrent and ahistorical. We are a nation of immigrants. With the exception of indigenous peoples, if you trace any one of our ancestral histories, you'll find proof of immigration or arrival from nearly every country in the world. No president possesses the power to change constitutional amendments by executive order, and this city should join the legal challenge to this unconstitutional action. With democracy under attack at the federal level, it is more critical now than ever to have strong local democracy to maintain freedom, debate through the exchange of ideas, and representative governance. Local and state governments not only have a responsibility to protect their residents, but to also unequivocally commit ourselves to strengthening democracy and asserting our shared values. Together with our constituents and the people of this city, let us unite to protect democracy, values, and progress, which our ancestors risked their lives to advance for us. It is now up to us all to protect and grow the seeds of progress to bestow on future generations so that all of us can live full lives of meaning, dignity, and safety. That is especially true in the most challenging of times. Now let's move on to our stated agenda. First, we'll vote on the following land use items: Gleason Funeral Home Commercial Overlay, a private application to facilitate the construction of a new accessory parking lot, which will provide 22 additional off-street parking spaces for a funeral home in Councilmember Vicky Palladino's district. We'll also vote on the following finance item: Preconsidered Resolution 712, sponsored by Councilmember Justin Brannan, to approve the new designation and changes in the designation of certain organizations to receive funding in the expense budget. Today, we'll also vote on the following pieces of legislation: Preconsidered Resolution 713, sponsored by Councilmember Eric Dinowitz and Councilmember Keith Powers, would recognize January 27, 2025 as the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz concentration and extermination camp, and commemorating January 27th annually as Auschwitz Remembrance Day in the city of New York. Resolution 678, sponsored by Councilmember Tiffany Caban, would designate January 31st annually as Cecile Gentili Day in the city of New York to recognize her significant contributions as an author, performer, policymaker, and activist. Introduction 100, sponsored by Councilmember Julie Won, would suspend alternate side parking rules for the holiday Losar, also known as Tibetan New Year. Introduction 697A, sponsored by Councilmember Sandy Nurse, would require the Department of Sanitation to conduct 2 waste characterization studies, the first of which would examine the residential and institutional waste streams and which would be due by January 31st, 2028. The second would examine available information on the commercial waste stream, and the due date would be by January 31st, 2032. Okay. Councilmember Nurse may be on her way. Introduction 587A, sponsored by Councilmember Eric Dinowitz, would require the 311 Customer Service Center to conduct customer satisfaction surveys after each individual call and provide the customer with an option to ask for the service request or complaint to be reopened by the agency. 311 would be required to publish information on its website every month. Now I invite Councilmember Dinowitz to the podium to discuss this legislation.
Thank you.
Why, you're welcome.
Thank you. I usually say I'm the chair of the Men Who Get It caucus because you say this is the majority women. Good, I think it's afternoon at this point. Good afternoon, everyone. You know, when I think of good government, I think of government that is transparent and government that is responsive. And countless New Yorkers every single day call 311. They use the 311 app to communicate with government agencies who are supposed to be transparent and responsive to their needs. That's the vehicle through which they get their service complaints addressed. But too often you hear it from all of our offices. Someone puts in a complaint in the 311 app and it gets bounced back closed. Everything from a noise complaint to a heat complaint to a pothole to an illegally parked car to illegal dumping. The agency sends it back closed, and the person who puts that request in doesn't have a recourse to make themselves heard, to make their voice heard. With this legislation, what we're saying is the 311 system will conduct customer satisfaction surveys to get both quantitative and qualitative data. And monthly, 311 is going to issue reports so that we in the council that's committed to government transparency and government response and efficiency, can have oversight over relevant agencies that are or are not being responsive to the needs of our constituents. Want to be very clear, this is not an attack on 311. We love 311, but our job is to make 311 better. It is vital to addressing the varying needs of people in the city. And this council is committed to improving the 311 system. And we've already passed another piece of my legislation that requires wait times to be announced for people who call into the 311 system so they know if they're going to be on the phone for a long time, they get that assurance knowing that someone's going to take their call. So with this bill, we're looking for a more transparent and efficient and responsive government, which is what we do in this council. And I do also want to say a word about the resolution we're passing today, January 27th, commemorating 80 years since the Holocaust. And in those 80 years, we have more and more people forgetting that it ever happened denying it ever happened, and in some instances blaming the Jews for it happening. And while we commemorate and recognize the liberation from Auschwitz, it's also every time we do resolutions like these, every time we bring up issues of the Holocaust or any other chapter like that in our history, it's important to recognize the things that led to those events, the things that led to the Holocaust. Because we remember those end moments, the horrific pictures, but we often forget what happened before, the dehumanizing of groups of people, both with language and with the law, using legal means and people in power to dehumanize people who were deemed undesirable. And what happens after that, we've seen throughout history. And so today, as we pass this resolution, I also hope we take it as a learning moment to remember all the things that lead up to those horrific events in our history. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Dinowitz. We will now look at Introduction 100, sponsored by Councilmember Julie Wan. I invite the Councilmember to come up to the podium to talk about her legislation. Beautiful.
Losar Tashidalek. It is so good to see you all. Thank you so much to Madam Speaker, Deputy Speaker, and the entire Council for this auspicious day. I am so incredibly grateful as a representative of Tibetan Community Center in Woodside, Queens. There is no better day for us than to celebrate the passage of Intro 100, which will recognize Losar, also known as Tibetan Lunar New Year, by adding it to the New York City's alternate side parking. It's an honor to celebrate this historic day on behalf of 61,000 Tibetan Buddhists and neighbors from the Himalayan region who celebrate this holiday from Nepal, Bhutan, India, and all across the Himalayas. And as the speaker has said, we are a city of immigrants. We all are descendants of immigrants other than those who are indigenous to this country. And in a day like now, where the last few days we have heard from the President of the United States saying that refugees are no longer welcome here, this is again a clear statement under the leadership of Speaker Adams and the entire Council to say that we actually want to be a sanctuary for refugees, and we do recognize you, and we want to celebrate the culture and the religion and the history that you all bring, especially those who are politically persecuted in their home countries. So by recognizing Losar, we're giving visibility to a community whose civic and political engagement made today possible. Many who are refugees from Tibet or mountains of the Himalayas and Nepal, many who are nurses, doctors, domestic hotel workers, and a large contingent of taxi workers. And we are so grateful for more than 1,000 Himalayan New Yorkers on September 2024 who came to testify at Department of Transportation's hearing chaired by Brooks Powers. And we have a lot of the residents who came to testify for and waited over 5 hours. And as this passes, this bill will now go into effect to actually allow by February 28, 2025, which is Losar of this year, for people to actually observe the holiday without being worried mid-holiday celebration to have to go out and worry of a ticket. So I want to thank all the 36 council members who supported this bill, the 3 borough presidents, and thank you so much. And the Tibetan community is here today, many who are going to be upstairs to celebrate, and they've already brought us cultural significance by bringing us these scarves to honor every single 51 council members, as well as kapse, which is a traditional biscuit that Tibetans eat that is homemade, that's right in the members' lounge. So thank you so much for the celebration, and happy Losar.
Wonderful. Thank you, Councilmember Wan. Introduction 77A, sponsored by Councilmember Lincoln Ressler, would reform the current system under which former city employees and public servants are allowed to lobby city government after they have left city service. Under this bill, several former agency heads and employees of the mayor's office, including the chief of staff to the mayor, deputy chief of staff to the mayor, chief counsel to the mayor, chief advisor to the mayor, senior advisor to the mayor, director of intergovernmental affairs, communications director, press secretary, and any public servant who directly reports to the mayor would be barred from lobbying any city agency for 2 years. I invite Councilmember Ressler to the podium to discuss this legislation.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to begin by thanking the Speaker. You know, many of you may remember that when she was elected to the City Council, She took over from a scandal-scarred predecessor and restored, was that a nice way of saying it?
You did not go there.
I did go there. And she helped restore integrity to governing in the 28th Council District. And as our Speaker, has strengthened transparency and accountability and integrity in the City Council at every single turn. We have been fortunate to have her stellar and honest leadership in the City Council, and I really do want to thank you for your support of this bill, but the integrity you bring to this work every day. Truly. We've all seen an explosion of lobbying in New York City. Last year, lobbyists spent $131 million lobbying city government. That's nearly twice as much as a decade ago. And we've also seen scandal after scandal plaguing the Adams administration. What I found most jarring was at the end of 2022, when Frank Carone was coming, when his year as Chief of Staff to the Mayor was coming to a conclusion, he did an interview from his office just down the hall with City and State, where he acknowledged that he had already signed up a bevy of lobbying clients while working as Chief of Staff to the Mayor. He was the most powerful person in Eric Adams' administration, involved in the hiring of every key official, involved in the policy making, the budget decisions, the management of city government at every critical turn. And the day he left city government with his new lobbying practice, he was legally permitted to lobby 99% of mayoral agencies, 99% of mayoral staff, 99% of city government. That is disgraceful. And our legislation today slams the door shut on the revolving door that allows the most powerful people in the mayor's office to lobby their former colleagues the very next day. So with our legislation, somebody like Frank Carone would be prohibited from talking to anybody who works in a mayoral agency for 2 years, not just the people in the office of the mayor. This is important because it's the people in the office of the mayor, his most senior staff, his direct reports, that oversee our 300,000 person, $110 billion government. And with this new legislation, we will be able to ensure real accountability so that public officials, senior public servants, are operating in the public's interests, not on behalf of special interests. We can ensure that they are actually working to deliver for us rather than delivering for themselves. So I'm really grateful to the Speaker once again for her support and for her team. I really want to thank Jeremy John, Faiza Mandela, Jeff Baker, David Seitzer helped us enormously in the drafting of this bill, Jayshree Ganapathy, our committee counsel. I especially want to thank my Chief of Staff, Molly Haley, who cares more about ethical government than anybody I know. And with her as a partner, we were able to devise this strategy for how to bring more honest government to New York City. With all of the corruption that we've been reading about for years, it's important that we find ways to restore the public trust, that we restore the confidence of New Yorkers that government is actually working for them, not working to enrich themselves. And this bill is a critical step forward to make that happen. So thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
Finally, we will vote on a package of legislation that I first outlined in my 2024 State of the City address to advance peer-based mental health solutions for our city's youth. The Council held a series of listening sessions with stakeholders to better understand the struggles of young New Yorkers and possible solutions. The bills are the result of listening sessions with advocates, service providers, and youth that aim to provide students with tools and resources that support their well-being. They represent the fourth stop in the Council's Mental Health Roadmap, a comprehensive and evolving plan to improve mental health outcomes for New Yorkers. Introduction 1103A, sponsored by Deputy Speaker Diana Ayala, would require the NYPD within 48 hours of a determination that a violent or traumatic incident has occurred to notify the Mayor's Office of Community Mental Health of such incident. A violent or traumatic incident is defined as any incident or series of incidents that can cause severe emotional and mental distress to the public. Upon receiving a notice of a violent or traumatic incident, OCMH would be required to conduct outreach to local community members regarding the availability of mental health resources in the city, such as the 988 Suicide and Crisis Hotline. I invite our Deputy Speaker to discuss her important legislation.
I'll try to be brief, but not long after I was elected to office, I was at an event when I received a text message that an 11-year-old girl had jumped off the 16th story roof at Wagner Houses in my district. And, unfortunately, she passed away. But I remember that day it wasn't summer yet, it was probably early June. And it was May 24th. It was beautiful outside. It was maybe 73 degrees. And so everybody was outside because it was one of the first days where it was actually warm. And many of her peers from school happened to be in the vicinity of the incident when it occurred. The traumatic experience from that really touched me, because it made me reflect back on all of the traumatic experiences that I've witnessed. I've seen a stabbing in my district. I've seen dead bodies on the floor waiting for the coroner to come and pick them up. I had a neighbor that died, and I had to, because I was the neighbor, I needed to be the witness and go into the apartment and see the body while the police were in there. And these experiences are very unique to communities like mine, right? They happen every single day, and we are left with the aftermath of having to compress the trauma that comes from that, right? And the impact on mental health. And so what I'm hoping to get with this bill is to create some sort of protocol that would mandate that mental health providers be sent to the scene of such a, where such a traumatic incident occurs, to talk to the people that live there. Because we know what happens when we don't talk about these issues, right? We internalize them and internalize them until they blow. And so I'm really proud of this bill, and I hope that, we never know, right? These are like kids. You raise them and then you wait and see what the outcome will be. I truly hope that this bill will make a difference and will ensure that people in communities like mine are receiving the level of attention that they need. And I will give props, because after that incident, we did make a phone call to NYC, and they sent out folks to come out and give, literature, to talk to folks. And then I went back out into the community to see if there was an interest in it. And people were just really, really happy that somebody came out and asked them how they felt about that. A few weeks before that incident, we had a shooting in that same development where a person's brain matter was literally on the floor for days. Just a few months after that, we had in the same development, a woman was stabbed to death in the hallway, a residential hallway where people lived, and the crime scene was left untouched for the entire day. My staff and I literally had to go there and clean it ourselves, because there was blood everywhere, and there were people coming out of their apartments, children, right, coming out of their apartment. And when you encounter a traumatic experience, you're like, wow, that was tough, right? That was tough to digest. Imagine this being a recurring theme in your community and not having any outlet to talk through these issues with. So I'm really proud of this bill, and I want to thank my colleagues who signed on, and hopefully it does what it's intended to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Introduction 996A, sponsored by Councilmember Althea Stevens, would require the Commissioner of Health and Mental Hygiene to offer peer-based mental health literacy training to public, middle, and high school students. The Department of Education would have to distribute informational materials concerning the availability of this training to public, middle, and high school each academic year. I invite Councilmember Stevens to the podium to discuss her legislation.
Well, one, I just want to even start by saying, mental health is a real issue in our community, and I am just ecstatic because young people are really leading the way in this conversation. And just thinking about when I grew up, the stigma around having depression and anxiety was something that was not spoken about because you didn't want to be labeled crazy. But I've been in youth development for 20 years, and I have seen how this has changed, where young people are coming to me and saying, Miss, I'm having an anxiety attack. Miss, I'm depressed. I have a youth advisory board where young people have said their number one issue that they want me to focus on is mental health, because they want the services. And so this package of bills just means a lot to me because I know this is coming from the young people who are saying this is what we want, and the council is listening and being responsive to what they want. So we are at this pivotal moment in our city. We must continue to support the well-being of all our young people. I would like to thank our speaker, Adrienne Adams, our fearless leader, and all of my colleagues who continue to advocate for mental health equality in the city. The Mental Health Roadmap, which was led by my colleague and my really dear friend, Linda Lee, thank you, is a critical transformative step in addressing mental health within our community. Intro 966A will establish a peer-based mental health literacy training to New York students, a critical tool to fight against the growing mental health crisis among young people. Our young people are navigating a complex world, and it is imperative that we not only equip them with knowledge to identify mental health issues, but also empower them to support each other effectively. By implementing the peer-based approach, we enhance their ability to recognize signs of distress, others, support each other, and seek necessary help. This legislation is not about training, it's about changing the culture of our schools and our young people's lives, and understanding and supporting empathy with one another. By fostering a community where students look out for one another, we can create a ripple effect and of awareness and assist to extend it beyond just the classroom. So I'm really excited about this legislation, about changing the culture and young people not only getting the tools that they need to help one another, but also just continuously to change the culture so that they also have the tools to identify and recognize those things within each other, and also give that information to the right mental health support services so that we can continue to get help. And this is what's going to help change the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stevens, and I want to especially thank you for your commitment over the years to our youth. Nobody does it like you, and so well and in such excellence. And for those of us that actually have gone into our high schools and have gone into those meditation rooms, those quiet spots, those warming places, and actually see the real results, you know, and the impact, the positive impact that spaces like this have on our children, know the significance of continuing and enhancing services, and this legislation is priceless. Thank you for your work. Introduction 989A, sponsored by Councilmember Linda Lee, would require the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to create student wellness club toolkits to help guide middle and high school students on how to create peer-led student wellness clubs. The bill would also require the Department of Education to post guidance on its website on how to start a student club and make the student wellness club toolkits created by DOHMH available to all middle and high school students. I invite Councilmember Lee to the podium to discuss her legislation.
Thank you, Speaker. And I think I can say this, I think we're personally very lucky on this council to have such an amazing speaker who's backed this mental health roadmap plan since the beginning, as well as colleagues who have expertise in all the areas that we need, like Councilmember Joseph in education, Councilmember Stevens with youth, and a whole mix of us, not to discount you as a teacher, don't worry, I didn't forget you. And to Deputy Speaker's point, I've seen this as well, and I think older Asian seniors actually have one of the highest rates of suicide, which I don't know if that's well known to folks. And I've experienced suicide in a lot of the communities and spaces that I've been in as well personally. And this is something where whether, and especially I've in all the different communities I speak with, in the religious communities especially, it's really hard for our youth in these communities to talk freely and openly. And I think within the school setting, sometimes they want professionals there, sometimes they don't. And I think the toolkits and the package of bills that we're presenting today allows them to be able to have these conversations amongst themselves. And if you haven't noticed already, I'm a huge fan of peer-to-peer support. I believe in it. It's such an amazing model, and I think we need more programs that reflect this. And so I'm very, very proud to introduce 989 and hope that it passes today to create student wellness club toolkits and informational materials. And I really think that this is going to have a significant impact in the way that our youth are dealing with all of the things like bullying, social media. I should probably join one of those groups. Yeah, politics, exactly. Yes. Yes. Yeah, that too. So I think this is allowing them to have that space and giving them the tools they need to lead these conversations themselves and to have these safe spaces where they can have these important conversations. So I just again want to thank the speaker as well as my colleagues for just this whole package of legislation that we're hopefully going to be passing today. And just want to say thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Introduction 986A, sponsored by Councilmember Rita Joseph, would require the city to develop a 2-year pilot program to involve mental health professional candidates in student wellness clubs at public, middle, and high schools. These professional candidates, such as individuals studying to become licensed social workers, will facilitate student discussions and workshops on various mental health topics. I invite Councilmember Joseph to the podium to discuss her legislation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to my colleagues. It is so important as an educator, forever educator, that we have these toolkits in place for our young people. We're seeing the havoc that post-pandemic has caused on our young people across the city. As Councilmember Stevens and I, we always have this joke that we are co-parents of all these young people across the city. So we're happy today to deliver legislation to make sure that we are protecting their mental health. So thank you for being here today as we take another step forward in addressing the most urgent issue facing our city, mental health. And we hear that over and over during budget season. The students want more mental health supports in our schools. Mental health affects every community, every family, and every individual in New York City. But we know the best way to build a healthier, more resilient city is to start with our youngest New Yorker. That's why I'm proud of that bill. Intro 986 will do that. It creates a 2-year pilot program to bring mental health professional candidates into student wellness clubs, into our public, middle, and high school. As a forever educator and a mom, I've seen the challenges our students face every day, from academic pressure, societal issues, to navigating personal struggles at home. Our kids are carrying more than we can see, yet many of them feel like they have nowhere to turn. This legislation is about changing that. This pilot program will create safe, structured spaces for students to openly discuss mental health topics and seek guidance from trained mental health professional candidates. By connecting with students in wellness clubs, these candidates can facilitate conversations, lead workshops, and help normalize conversations around mental health. But this is more about providing immediate support. This program is about building a pipeline of future mental health professionals who understand the needs of our communities and are ready to serve. I want to thank my colleagues. Speaker Adams, thank you so much. Councilmember Lee, thank you for leading the way and unwavering commitment to prioritizing the council's mental health roadmap. We've made strides, but there's so much more to do. Today, Intro 986 is one piece of a much larger puzzle that we're working to put together, one that ensured New Yorkers of all ages have access to care and support they need. I look forward to continuing this critical work with you all today. Together, we're paving the way for healthier schools, stronger families, and a more compassionate New York City. Thank you all.
Okay, that concludes our stated agenda. With that, we will take on topic questions first. Good to see you.
Why not subject council staff to these same rules, since the mayor's staff is supposed to be subject to them under this new bill?
Councilmember Ressler, would you like to answer that?
Thank you so much. When I originally introduced this package of legislation, it was much broader. It covered all people on the substantial policymaking discretion list. Basically, all your assistant deputy commissioners at every single city agency, senior mayoral staff, senior council staff, and we also had a bill that applied to elected officials. When we held our hearing, the Conflicts of Interest Board and all the good government groups gave sharp feedback that they thought it was too broad, that it was better to target the most powerful people in city government, the senior staff in the mayor's office that have direct oversight of the 300,000 person mayoral age executive branch of city government. And so when we narrowed the bill to include the most senior mayoral staff, we took out the senior staff at all agencies, including the city council, so that this bill would be most impactful at restricting the influence of the most powerful people in city government. Thank you.
On that same bill, same bill, come back.
I'm ready. I'm hanging out. We're having a good time.
I believe the
the mayor's office said, they called you hypocrites, but they also said that they supported. I mean, are you expecting a veto fight here? Or are you expecting them to, be supportive? Is there any further tension over this bill?
We'll see. I will say this, that whenever this city council under Adrienne Adams' leadership has gone toe-to-toe with the mayor's office, it hasn't been close. We've won every single time. And so when the speaker puts her shoulder behind legislation, the council backs it, and we'll let the chips fall where they may. We.
Got you on advice and consent. Yeah, I hear you.
The advice and consent was not vetoed, because the mayor knew that the speaker supported it, and she has the support of her members, and we have her back. And so what I would say is this: we've had we've heard that they don't love our bill, but we've had some positive conversations as well. We'll see. Our job is to pass the best legislation, and we'll do what we need to do to see it enacted into law. That's okay.
Speaker, regarding your first statement on Trump.
On topic first,
What
please.
you mentioned about refugees and birthright citizenship and all that. It was the first thing she's discussed. We can't talk about it.
We're doing on topic the bills first. So if there's a question about the legislation, we'll do that first, then we'll come back to you with the off.
Any other on-topic questions?
So, regarding your first statement
Yes.
on refugees, et cetera, how do you expect refugees to be impacted by what Trump's doing? Second, what would you like to see the administration, the mayoral administration, doing that it's not doing? And just broadly, what do you make of the mayor's magnification? He's afraid to
Wow.
go to jail. What's going on?
Wow, that's a lot. As far as refugees in New York City are concerned, we are prepared for anything from this presidential administration that has come in. I think that we've heard a lot of rumors over the past couple of days. We're in a wait-and-see mode. I mean, we don't know, how broad this is going to impact our folks. So we're in wait-and-see mode. The second part of your question was?
What is the administration not doing?
Okay.
That you'd like to say? Maybe even the mayor himself.
Okay. That's a great question because several other cities prepared for this administration and for the things that were preemptively going to happen. New York City administration had no plan, like so many other cities had, to prepare for the situation. So it's really been, in my humble opinion, the work of the council, us working with our different advocates and our constituents that have gotten information out there. But I would have liked to have seen a more succinct plan preemptively from the administration to prepare for this situation.
How about now going forward? What do you want the administration to do that it isn't doing? And the magnification plan.
Well, the magnification, I don't know what that means.
His comments about Trump, his shifting attitude towards Trump, he had previously criticized him quite harshly. Now he's going on Tucker, et cetera, going on.
I can't answer for the behavior of the mayor, the actions of the mayor. What I will say is that I really, really do hope that for whatever impact these series of events are happening or have happened, that it really does benefit the people of the city. That is my hope. And as far as,
What would you like the administration be doing that it isn't doing, specifically, policy-wise, lawsuit-wise, whatever-wise?
There are a lot of things going on right now, particularly getting onto the lawsuit when it comes to the 14th Amendment. I would like to see for the administration to definitely get onto that lawsuit. I would also like to see various measures, hard copy measures, talking to the immigrants of the city of New York, really, really laying out the protections that the administration has for them.
The mayor doesn't seem to want to do that. The mayor just doesn't seem to want to talk about it.
I can't answer for what the mayor wants to talk about.
Similar questions we had. I wanted to know what your thoughts were on when the mayor, in his recent interview with Tucker Carlson, said that the Democratic Party left him. Did you have any reaction to that? And I'm wondering, are you worried that the mayor's going to just stand by if ICE agents were to come to the city? Are you guys yourselves preparing? You guys have your own plan in place since the administration seems to be standing idly by?
Well, again, to your point, Kelly, I think that we have been doing the work, both policy-wise and having meetings with our advocates and others when it comes to protecting our migrants to the best of our ability. As far as, what the mayor's been doing, again, similarly to the last series of questions on that, again, I hope those visits really were for the benefit of New York. We'll see. It's hard to recognize how some of these of late can possibly benefit the citizens of New York. But again, my hope is that overall that New Yorkers will feel the benefit of that relationship, whatever it is. I think that there's a lot of work, for the mayor to do to demonstrate the strong voice and leadership that New Yorkers expect from him, though.
And you mentioned something about rumors. Have you heard anything from immigration authorities? Are you communicating with them?
We're always communicating, back and forth. I have not heard anything solid coming to me. Perhaps some of my colleagues have, but I'm hearing things in the wind that things are happening in different areas, and I don't have any concrete evidence of that yet. So stand by. Hopefully, we will have some, something that we can definitively share.
Michelle.
Hi, Speaker Adams.
Hi, Michelle.
I wanted to ask about the budget. This is the mayor.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the city's been long accused of underfunding city FEPs. The mayor's preliminary budget proposal for the upcoming fiscal year would leave it with a fiscal cliff of about $500 million. I know that the council has tried to head this off. You guys last year negotiated baseline funding that hope to address the root of the problem. I just wanted to ask, are there any next steps that the council is looking at to fortify City FEP's place in the budget?
We're going to look at a lot of things. City FEPS is still very, very important to us. Our negotiations are certainly going to include that. They're going to be focused on enhancing the services and programs that we currently have in the city. And again, this is something that we haven't started yet, but all of this is going to be brought to the table when it comes to those negotiations. And as we progress, we will share. Possibly. Mm-hmm.
Madam Speaker, I think you started to answer the question a moment ago that Matt was asking you about Eric Adams when it comes to deportations, when it comes to Trump's executive orders. What more do you need to hear from the mayor himself?
Great question, NJ. I would like to hear more of the communication, since there seems to be a line of communication. I would like for that to be shared. I don't think that will happen, though, from what we understand, and I'm sure you understand it as well. The mayor is somehow prohibitive from saying certain things about the new president, so I'm not sure that would happen.
Do you feel that he needs to mount a more vigorous defense of the city's immigrant community?
Yes, I do.
And when it comes to protecting...
Go ahead, NJ.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
When it comes to protecting the city's immigrants, which immigrants are you referring to? You say that the city needs to protect its immigrants.
Quite frankly, I'm talking. I don't know what this new president is going to do. We're seeing now. Let's look at the 14th Amendment. We're looking at me. We're looking at all of us in this room, quite frankly, who are, subject to be targets because of this. I'm just going to say this strike that this president has now undertaken very quickly. I don't know the extent, of this strike or these strikes. I don't know the impact or how many will be impacted. I just know that from what we've seen over the past couple of days, it ain't pretty. and it's pretty wide. So all of us need to have our eyes and our ears really, really open right now.
I know you haven't been looking at your phone, but a judge in Seattle has temporarily blocked Trump's executive order.
There you go. That's good news.
Just came over now.
Thank you for that.
Yes, two questions. First, kind of related to what we've been discussing, how do you feel about the guidance that city agencies have been given to prepare for the Trump administration's plans for large-scale deportations? And then, unrelated, earlier this week, the City Council had announced its appointments to the new Charter Revision Commission. Could you talk a little bit about the thinking behind the naming of the co-chairs, Henry Garrido and Mark Price?
Sure. Well, the Charter Commission is really, really easy. Our co-chairs are some of the most committed individuals in their fields and beyond. They've got the pulse of the city, have for a very, very long time. So their expertise goes without saying. We are hoping that what this commission will do is something that I think the people of the city of New York really, really want to see. We want to see a transparent review of the entire city charter. We want to see the time taken to review this charter. We've got great commissioners that want to hear from all New Yorkers about how we change the city's charter to strengthen our local democracy and enhance government accountability and transparency. So we're really excited about that. The first part of your question, I apologize, which was? Oh, right. The guidance from city agencies to our immigrant communities. Have you heard of this guidance?
No, that's what I'm asking.
Okay, that's my point. I haven't either. So again, for me, I would like to see something hard copy, coming from the administration that really does direct those most vulnerable right now in their fears and the things that they're going through and the things that they are seeing, and the fact that some people are now talking about going underground, and the fact that that some children may have to go away from schools, from the friends and the teachers and the educational environments that have meant so much to them. And we're not just talking little ones, we're talking teenagers. We don't talk too much about teenagers in middle school also that have come through this horrific experience and trauma. So I would like to see something concrete from the administration, from city agencies, ways to help and protect those among us who are the most vulnerable right now.
A lot of action on the Airbnb bill. What's the status of that in the council? You're a co-sponsor, but is there any movement on that, or is it still in negotiation?
Absolutely still in negotiation. Very, very sensitive bill, as we all know, from both sides of the table. And again, our standard line is that it is going through the legislative process. We have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to discover, and when it comes to both sides, and we are looking to continue those talks.
I had two questions. That's kind of one, though, just get your response on that, though. Critics are saying it's against the council's affordable housing push, so why support it is the question there.
I don't agree with that, by the way, that it's against the council's affordable. I don't agree with that. Yeah, and there are different opinions when it comes to this particular bill. When it comes to keeping homeowners in their homes, people that relied on certain income to pay mortgages, etc. But again, the talks are still happening. So there are different mindsets. Minds may be changed one way or the other. We've got a lot to talk about. I am more concerned about the thought processes of the Trump administration when it comes to ICE, when it comes to, in the 45th presidency, what happened as far as ICE is concerned. I am more concerned that New York City will once again be a target of this administration when it comes to certain laws and just the way that we behave as New Yorkers. We have a certain character about ourselves, and it's not. Quite frankly, it has not gone along that same page with this current presidential administration. So I'm much more concerned with that. And again, I really, really hope that this is a new relationship that takes New York in a different place and really that this relationship really does benefit the city. I really do.
Okay, following up on you want to join the city to join a lawsuit again. Have you had conversations with the mayor's side about the city potentially joining a lawsuit, and would you go ahead with it without the mayor's support? And then I have a second question.
Okay, we would prefer for the administration to join that action. So we are, our staff will continue to talk along those lines, and. I'm sorry, I'm just blanking with the second questions these days. The second question?
I have a second question.
Okay, there was no second question. I thought I was losing it. Okay.
Do you think Adams is a good Democrat, or should he switch?
Gosh. All right, I'm going to close my book on that one. No, I have no opinion, on, the mayor's party, how he feels that he should conduct himself as a Democrat. That's not for me to say one way or the other. So.
Okay, and I wonder, could you expand? Last weekend, you talked about Mr. Misogyny.
I sure did.
Yes, you did, and you spoke generally, but you also spoke more pointedly at the mayor in particular talking about the ballot prop. I wonder if you could expand a bit on that.
Sure. Have you ever experienced Mr. Misogyny? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So my remarks came from a place where I spoke about our Vice President, Kamala Harris. Some of you know that I did some campaigning, vigorous campaigning for her, and some of the experiences that I saw during that process. I spoke about Stacey Abrams also when I spoke about misogyny in general. The experiences that I spoke about in present terms in giving misogyny a moniker of Mr. Misogyny had to do with lived experiences of my own and the political experience over the past year or so. Any woman in this room has had an experience with Mr. Misogyny. So I don't want to take a poll because I can, but I dare say that every woman in this room has had an experience with Mr. Misogyny. I could have spoken about my previous career, almost 2 decades in corporate America, where I taught corporate executives as a black woman, the only black woman in the room, where I taught corporate executives who will make more money in a week, in a month, than I will ever make in a lifetime, more than likely. Mr. Misogyny lived there in those rooms, in those corporate spaces with me. I could speak about when I was a student at Spelman College, an all-women's college, and had teachers who were male teachers and looked at young women students as one way and then looked at male students in a different way. Mr. Misogyny was in those colleges. So when the Speaker of the City Council spoke last Saturday about political experiences going on in current times, Mr. Misogyny lives in the political realm as well. So that is my explanation for my comments. Let's sweep Mr. Misogyny out of our workplaces, out of our homes, out of our medical facilities, out of our schools, collectively, men included. Check yourselves and get rid of the Mr. Misogynies in your lives and your brains as well.
You couldn't be your other question. Can I just ask it?
No.
Thank you, everybody.